Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about something very important for front-end architects and senior front-end developers. Let's say your company has a very large front-end system, not one Next.js app, not two or three apps. Imagine you have 50 Next.js application, many teams, many developers, different business areas, and each team wants to release features independently. So the question is, how do we create and manage a huge Next.js project like this? Should we put all 50 apps inside the one monorepo, or should we keep 50 separate repositories? Should we use Micro-frontend? Should we use Turborepo? Or should we use something else? Let's talk about this in simple and practical way. First, we need to understand one thing. When we say huge Next.js project, we are not only talking about the code. We are talking about teams. We are talking about ownership. We are talking about deployment, shared UI, authentication, routing, performance, testing, monitoring, and long-term maintenance. So as a front-end architect, I would not start by asking, how do I create 50 Next.js apps? I would first ask, why do we need 50 apps? Because 50 apps is not a technical decision only. It is also an organizational decision. If you have a huge team and each team owns a little different business domain, then having a multiple repos can make sense. For example, one team may own catalog, another team may own checkout, another team may own payments, another team may own invoices, another team may own admin users, another team may own reports. In that case, separate repositories can help teams move independently. But if all apps are controlled by the same small team, then 50 repos will create unnecessary complexity. So the first rule is do not split front-end apps just because you can. Split them when there is a real business and team reason. Now, suppose we have 50 repos and huge team. What would I suggest as a front-end architect? I would suggest a front-end platform architecture. That means we should not have 50 random Next.js apps doing things in 50 different ways. Instead, we need a common platform layer. The architecture can look like this. We have one shell application, we have one app registry, and we have shared packages. We have product front-end repos, and we have front-end platform team that owns the standards. So the shell app is the main entry point. This is the app the user open first. For example, company.com. Inside that shell, we have common layout, navigation, header, sidebar, authentication check, theme provider, analytics, error handling, and routing. Then, based on that route, the shell sends the user to the correct micro frontend. For example, company.com/catalog goes to the catalog frontend. Company.com/checkouts goes to the checkout frontend. Company.com/invoices go to the invoices frontend. Company.com admin goes to the admin frontend. To the user, it feels like one application. But internally, there are small front-end applications owned by different teams. This is called route level micro front-end architecture. And for the Next.js projects, I usually prefer route level separation first because it's simpler and easier to deploy, it's easier to debug. And it works well when each business area has its own routes. Now, one big mistake is making every small component a micro front end. For example, do not create a separate repo for button. Do not create a separate repo for modal. Do not create a separate repo for table. That becomes too much. Those things should go into a shared UI package. A micro frontend should represent a business area, not tiny component. So catalog can be a micro frontend, checkout can be a micro frontend, payment can be a micro frontend, admin can be a micro frontend. But button, input, modals, card, table, those should be shared components. Now let's talk about the 50 repos problem. If we have 50 separate repos, we need strong standard. Otherwise, each team will be build things differently. One team will use one folder structure, another team will use another folder structure, one team will use different linting rules, another team will use different API handling, one team will use one auth method, another team will use something else. After some time, the whole system becomes difficult to maintain. So the solution is not only micro frontend, the solution is governance. And when I say governance, I don't mean slow process. I mean clear rules that helps team move faster. For example, every Next.js repo should follow the same base structure, something like this: SRC app for routes, SRC component for reusable local components, SRC feature for feature specific modules, SRC services for API calls, SRC hooks for custom hooks, SRC types for TypeScript types, SRC util for utility function. Every repo should also have the same basic setup. TypeScript, ESLint, Prettier, testing setup, Playwright or Cypress for end-to-end testing, shared UI package, shared auth package, shared API client, monitoring, analytics, CI/CD pipeline, README file, CODEOWNERS file. This is very important. In a huge team, ownership must be clear. If something breaks in checkout, who owns it? If something breaks in invoices, who fix it? If a route has a performance issue, which team responsible? That's why each repo should have code owners file. It tells GitHub or your Git platform who owns that code. For example, catalog frontend is owned by the commerce team. Checkout frontend is owned by the checkout team. Invoice frontend is owned by the finance team. Shell app is owned by the front-end platform team. Now let's talk about shared packages. When you have 50 repos, you should not copy the same code into the every repo. That's a huge problem. Imagine copying the same button component into the 50 apps. Later, if the design changes, you need to update 50 places. That's painful, right? So we need to create shared packages. For example, company UI, company auth, company client, ESLint config, TS config, Tailwind config, analytic configs. Those packages can be published into the private npm registry. Then every front-end repo can install and use them. For example, PNP add company UI. Now all the team use the same button, modal, input, and the design system. If the design system team update the button, team can upgrade the package version. But here is an important architect rule. Do not put too much business logic into the shared packages. Shared packages are good for UI, auth helpers, API-based client, analytics, formatting, and configuration. But business logic should stay inside the correct domain. For example, checkout calculation logic should stay inside the checkout. Invoice approval rule should stay inside the invoice. Payment validation should stay inside payment. If you put all business logic in shared packages, then the shared package become too much big and risky. Now let's talk about routing. If we have 50 front-end repos, the shell apps should not manually write 50 routes tools everywhere. That becomes hard to maintain. Instead, we should create an app registry. An app registry is like a central configuration that says this app's on this route, this app has this dev URL, this app has this production URL. This app is owned by this team. For example, catalog owns slash catalog, checkout owns slash checkout, invoices owns slash invoices, admin owns slash admin. The shell reads this registry and know where to send this request. This registry can also include more information like repo URL, owner team, Slack channel, health check URL, monitoring dashboard, deployment URL. This becomes very useful in a large company because with 50 repos, discoverability becomes a real problem. People start asking who owns this front end, where is the repo, where is the deployment, where is the documentation, who should review this PR, and app registry solve that problem. Some companies also use tools like Backstage for this kind of software catalog. Now let's talk about the local development. This is another big topic. If you have 50 Next.js apps, developers should not run all 50 apps locally. That's not practical. Your machine will be become slow, ports will be conflict, install time will be painful, debugging will be hard. So the local development strategy should be run only the shell app and the app you are working on. For example, if I am working on a catalog, I can run shell locally and catalog locally. Other apps like checkout, account, invoices, and admin can point to the deployed div URLs. So locally, it might have shell run on local 3000 port, catalog run on local 3001 port, checkout coming from checkout.div.company.com, invoices coming from invoices-div.company.com. This way, I can work on my feature without routing the entire company front end in my laptop. Now let's talk about CI/CD pipelines. With 50 repos, each repo should have its own independent pipelines. If I change catalog, it should build and deploy catalog only. I should not build all 50 repos. That's the benefit of having separate repos. Each team can release independently, but the pipeline should still follow the platform standard. Every repo should do install dependencies, run lint, run time check, run a unit test, run build, run end-to-end test if needed, run security check, create preview deployment, deploy to production after the approval. This gives teams independence but still keep quality high. Now, should we use Turborepo? If we have one repo with multiple apps, Turborepo is very useful. It helps run tasks across apps and packages. It helps with caching, it helps with affected builds. But if we have separate repos, Turborepo is not managing all the repos together. Instead, you can still use Turborepo inside each domain repo if that repo has multiple apps or packages. For example, commerce repo have a catalog, cart, checkout, and shared commerce packages. In that case, Turborepo is useful inside that repo, but the bigger solution is not just Turborepo. The bigger solution is platform standard, shared packages, app registry, and independent CI/CD pipelines. Now let's talk about the repo strategy. If a company already has 50 repos and huge team, I would not immediately merge everything into massive monorepo. That can be risky. Instead, I would keep this separate repos but organize them better. I would group by the domain, for example, commerce frontend, customer frontend, finance frontend, admin frontend, support frontend, platform frontend. Each domain can have its own repo or multiple repos depending on the team structure. But the key is this: team should be independent but not isolated. That means team can release their own apps but they still follows common platform standard. Now let's talk about the front end platform team. So this kind of setup, the platform team is very important. The platform team should own the shell apps, the routing strategy, the app registry, shared UI library, authentication packages, ESLint and TypeScript config, starter templates, CI/CD templates, monitoring standard, documentation, upgrading strategy. For example, when the company wants to upgrade from one Next.js version into another, the platform team should provide the migration guide and support the product team. Without platform team, 50 repos will slowly become inconsistent. One repo will be updated, another repo will outdated, another will be different pattern, another repo will have security issues. So the front-end platform team is not optional in a huge setup. It's necessary. Now, if a team wants to create a new Next.js app, they should not start from zero. The platform team should provide a starter template. For example, create company next app. This template should already include Next.js, TypeScript, ESLint, Prettier, Tailwind, or any other company style system, shared UI package, auth integration, API client setup, testing setup, analytics, monitoring, CI/CD pipeline, README template, code owners template. This is why every new app starts with same foundation. That saves a lot of time and prevents architecture drifts. Now let's summarize the solution. If you have 50 Next.js repos and a huge team, my architect recommendation is do not create 50 random apps. Create a front-end platform, use route level micro-frontend, use shell app as the main entry point, use an app registry for the routing and ownership. Use shared packages for UI, auth, config, app client, and analytics. Keep business logic inside the correct domain app. Use CODEOWNERS for clear ownership. Use independent CI/CD for each repo. Do not run all the apps locally. Run only shell plus app you are working on. Use starter template for new apps and create a front-end platform team to maintain standards. The main idea is simple. Give teams independence but keep the platform consistent. That is the balance. If every team is fully independent with no standard, the system becomes chaos. But if everything is controlled by one central team, development becomes slow. So the best architecture is somewhere in the middle. Team own their business app, the platform team own the foundation. That is how I would design a huge Next.js project with 50 repos and a large team. That is it for this video. I hope this gave you a clear idea of how to think like a front-end architect when you're working with a large scale Next.js project application. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.